We are in a culture that is heavy wanting attention. So if you are a company out there today or an entrepreneur out there today, you have like 3 seconds to hook people, you know? And so you do have to have a good story, or you do have to have a good hook. You do have to have something to grab the attention of the consumer. If you're in business, everything is numbers driven. There's a couple things I tell you about. Devil's in the details, and numbers don't lie. I don't want to say they always lie, but people will put themselves in the best light. Numbers will tell you the truth. And so we tracked everything, and everything came down to a number. I mean, family really is everything, but it's also something that is easily said. As a father, it's easy for me to say I'd give my life for my kids. But I heard somebody say this the other day. Instead of dying for your kids, why don't you live for them now? If you are to believe that Jesus walked this earth, as he created all these miracles, and as he taught us the way to live and treat people and to love people really well, was then crucified and died on a cross, that's what you anchor your faith to. Forget about the church, forget about the planes, forget about the trains, forget about all that. Anchor yourself to the resurrection. Tether yourself to that, because that's what changes the game.
Real quick, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, drop a comment, subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, leave us a review. It'll help us out big time, and it'll let us know that you guys actually like what we're putting out. All right, let's jump right in. Jason, welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for showing up, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. Ricardo, it's great to... Do you go by Ricardo? Is that what you go by, or do you have like a nickname?
So it's funny, in high school, my friends used to call me Rico.
Rico, okay.
Yeah, when we played football, not saying I was very good at it, but you know, when we played football, they would call me Rico, and then it just kind of stuck for a little bit.
Well, you're up in Virginia, which is like Michael Vick area. I mean, but is that like Newport? Is that where you're at in Virginia, or
no? So Newport News is 4 hours away in Virginia Beach. I am more near DC, the DC area. So where Arlington is. Arlington, right next to Oxon Hill, Maryland, and all that.
That's great. So I when I was really young, I grew up in Kensington, Maryland, and I went to Montrose Christian Academy. My mother taught there, and so because of that, we got to slide in the Christian school. But way after me, a guy named Kevin Durant went there too.
Oh, some guy.
So KD went there. Just some other guy way after me. but so I know that area, but I left when I was probably 5. I remember the snow. We took our kids up there my son was probably in middle school. So I had elementary, fourth grade, 5th grade kind of, and then probably 7th grade, 8th grade. And we did a tour around DC, kind of like just a history thing for the kids. And we did Arlington. So we went over to Arlington Cemetery and saw the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and all that stuff. And so, DC is an incredible place, and obviously a wealth of history. I mean, so it's kind of cool that you're there. Do you make it into any of that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, living here for a couple of years, you kind of just, DC is just kind of like whatever at this point. Like everybody talks about it so much. Oh, let's go to the museum, let's go to the monument, like all this and all that. I'm just like, it's like 10 minutes away from me. I've been there millions of times.
You can make every protest you want to make.
Oh man, trust me, I really could.
On both sides of the aisle, you could make every protest.
Yeah, but it'd be just fine. No, protests can get very rowdy and very.
I imagine so. We don't get a ton of them here. I'm in Sleepy Beach Village. I was telling you before we came on air. I'm in a spot they like, Santa Rosa Beach, but people may know 30A. But if they know Panama City Beach and Destin, Florida, I'm kind of right between the pair of them. We call it the Emerald Coast. Sugar white sand, crystal clear water. Some of the best places you need to be. And so, Ricardo, you need to definitely make your way down here and come into the studio with me. Love to have you on sometime. But it's a great spot to vacation for sure.
Well, I will take you up on your invitation. I will make it down there at some point.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's crazy. I think I've only been Florida-wise. I've only been to Orlando. I haven't even been to Miami. I've only been to Orlando just to go to the Orlando resorts. That's it.
So we're a totally different thing, man. I'm not even sure what to call it. Some people are calling it like the Hamptons of the South. You know, I mean, we've got an incredible spot. It's not the cheapest place to be. A lot of celebrities find their second homes here. Russell Brand put a second home here. Now, actually, it's permanent home here. We have Luke Bryan has a second home here. Chris Stapleton, some of these country music people. Jerry Jones had a place here. I'm not sure. I think he still has it. Britney Spears had a place here. Taylor Swift sang a song about Destin on her newest album. So we got a lot of folks. Kane Brown lives down the road. I was telling you earlier, Ninja and Tim the Tapman, they all came down here because the subdivision they moved to had fiber in it. So they were like, wow, I can do, 2 gigs up and down and stream and all that stuff. So it's a growing area, but it's just an island. It's an island with probably, I think from water to the county line, it's 90,000 inhabitants. But on our island in high season, we'll have 3 to 4 million people on our island, just coming in and renting homes and condos and hotels and enjoying these beautiful beaches and incredible we have great seafood, brother. Snapper, grouper, amberjack, redfish, sea trout. We just have incredible species of fish that are great eating. So it's good stuff down here. Yeah.
That's insane.
Can't brag about the area enough. Yeah, it's good spot. If you want to come, just be nice.
Just be normal, just be nice.
Just be normal and nice. Treat our home like yours. That's all.
Yeah. No, it actually kind of does sound kind of like how the food is here. A lot of food here is very seafood centric because of the Chesapeake Bay and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
especially you drive an hour away, you get to Baltimore, and then you get all the Old Bay seasonings.
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff. So
you got those crab, man. That crab. What was it there in Maryland? The crab cakes in Maryland, cakes. And I mean they barely hold them together. It's more crab than it is the breading, and that's when you got a Maryland crab cake, right? Crab cake from that area. Mm-hmm. So
crab cakes are really good. You get tired after eating a couple.
I was gonna say you want some stuff, yeah, man. But I'm super glad to be here. I'm so thankful that you had me on, and it's fun to be able to share my story and talk a little bit about me. So I'm game for whatever you want, brother.
Cool. So I know I want to get into a little bit of your past before we figure out what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned at some point that you were Georgia's best soccer player in your teens.
Yeah,
what's that about?
In my teens, early on, the people that asked me, like, throw myself around is like, give you some quirky things that you've done. And so funny story though, they had in Georgia, they did a competition called the Skills-O-Rama. And, so you got to go back. I mean, I was born in 1977. I'm product of the 1900s. So, but way back in the day, they had a Skills-O-Rama competition where you would have to pass through cones, dribble through cones, shoot at the goal, hit targets, all of these different things to try to do that. And the first year that they did it, everybody in my area was like, you've got to try out on this thing. And I mean, I was probably 11, 12 maybe. And so I did it. And I made it past like what you call the regionals. And so I made it to like the next round, which was the state finals, to figure out who was the best player in my age group. And I walked away with that competition and I got third place. And my mother was so proud. I got a little trophy and all this stuff. And my mom said, Jason, I'm so proud of you. You got third place. And why do you look so dejected? And I told her, I said, well, Mom, there were only 3 people in this competition.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So nothing like last place being third, but fast forward a few years later, I was probably like 14, 15 years old then. And, the competition had gotten to hundreds and thousands of kids, really. I was probably, I'd say growing towards 1,000 kids all over the state were now, the competition got a lot bigger. Pele, the great soccer player, signed his name to it because it's now called Pele Skills-O-Rama competition. In fact, he showed up and gave the trophies out. And so that year I practiced so hard. And of course I made it, I felt like I could beat the kids in my area. I did. I made it into the state competition, and I was fortunate enough to actually win the competition with the skills, that day. So I had an interesting soccer career and played a little bit for the Olympic development team and the regionals and things like that. And a lot of the kids that played on my team growing up and played against me and with me in all of those went on to play in the World Cups. Josh Wolf, Clint Mathis. Some of these guys, even Jason Moore played on our team, who's played in the MLS for a long time in Major League Soccer. But I finally tore my knee out in high school and then tore the same knee again in college, and I called it a day. But my senior year, I was elected as, super senior, player and played in the kind of the all-star game. But yeah, it was less than a year later, my second knee surgery came, and that was the end of my soccer career right there.
Man, so would you say those were kind of your lowest moments during your soccer career where you tore out your knee not once but twice?
Oh, yeah. The first time I'm too young to really know what was going on, right? I've got this little cord hanging down on my in-ears. I'm going to try to fix that for me. I don't know. When I first had it happen in 16, I didn't know what was going on. Nobody really knew what was going on. And again, back then I was playing at such a high level. I was playing on the varsity team as a freshman in high school, starting, and I didn't want to leave that. So when I tore my knee out, I remember I took a game off and taped it up and played the rest of the season. So I destroyed my knee. So young people, you listening, you got to listen to doctors, you got to talk to some. Nobody really knew what an ACL was back then. I know they did at an elite level, like you're talking pro level, maybe even if you had a trainer. But in a high school level, they just didn't think about it. And so I tore my knee out and we just taped it up, and I played the whole season with a torn ACL, meniscus, and just continued to do that. And then I guess it was the following year, my knee would pop in and out so many times. I finally said, I've got to get to a doctor. I could just pivot, playing basketball in the yard with buddies, and it would go out and I'd have to lay down on the ground and kind of get it to snap back in place. And so I knew that wasn't right, and I couldn't live that way. And so I went and got it redone. But I didn't want to miss out. Like, I felt like I was going to miss out on all these other elite teams that I was on and playing with, and I'd lose my spot and all this. And finally, I had no choice. So I got it reconstructed, took a season off, and came back probably my junior year pretty hard. And then again, my senior year pretty hard, got a scholarship, and then just it was real quick. My knee was torn again, and I went back to the doctor, and he was like, man, this thing's gone. It's trash, And what'd you do?
Gosh.
And I didn't rehab it right either. I rehabbed it right when I was 18, 19 years old. But at 16, I did the surgery, and I think I went to like rehab twice. So that's another lesson, kids. You don't realize that you're hurting your body at doing some of these things when you're young, and you will pay for them. You will pay for them later. You just don't. You can't see that because I always say there's that old saying that the youth is wasted on the young. Because you just don't realize that if you could take it easier, your body would last longer. Sometimes.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I haven't had any like major injuries like that. Mainly because I didn't get as much playing time as he probably did. But
yeah.
I do go to the gym, and I do know what it feels like to pull a muscle, and I do know what it's like to be really sore and stuff. So
honestly, you'll probably be better for it. Look, I'd recommend everybody go to the gym and work out. Even in my old age, I try to lift some weights and do stuff. I can't run like I used to because both my knees are actually, there's nothing in there. So I know I'll have to have double knee replacement probably inside the next 2 years or 10 years. My doctors want me to get older. I'm 48 years old. They want me to get into my 50s, so they don't want me to have double knee replacements, and all this. So, I still get around. I just don't run. So I row, I walk, I lift weights, swim, things of that nature. I have to just modify my workout. But it's super important. My wife stays on me really well because she wants me around, which I appreciate. But you've got to lift weights to keep your bone density there and all that stuff. As you get older, man, Ricardo, it's Whew, it ain't for the faint of heart, brother. You like, I used to have great stories when I pull my back, because I went for a header, or I was deadlifting whatever, or, squatting whatever. And now I pull my back because I went to grab the toothbrush wrong, so it can be tough.
Not the toothbrush. Oh my God.
Yeah, man. I pulled my lower back just lifting up the green egg the other day to flip wings. So you gotta really, it's like I said, taking care of your body is super, super important. And it is, when you look at how your attitude is in life, your body and health really play a big part in that. If you don't feel well, like if your body's hurting, your attitude will hurt. It will suffer. And so if you take care of your body well, your attitude can be better.
Yep. And that's not even, and I mean, taking care of your body well, it's not just making sure you don't pull something. It's also making sure that you're eating the right things, make sure you're stretching.
100%. That's all that.
Nutrition.
It's a 360 deal. And it is tough. I mean, I started realizing it probably in my late 30s. I worked out, even with all that, my ACL and all that, I started probably my late 20s, early 30s, I started working out and doing CrossFit. I got into the CrossFit world really pretty heavy, and my wife and I would do some sprint triathlons and some marathons and things of that nature. And so we did a lot of that stuff back then. And always that workout world has really been a part of our life. Certainly my wife, she's a fiend at working out, and even more than I am. And we've always kind of had it as a part of our life. So I certainly appreciate it, but I noticed in my 30s, I could eat whatever I wanted to. And even I could, on the weekends, we could go to a football game somewhere, or a baseball game. I could eat hot dogs, hamburgers, desserts. I could have the shake. I could do whatever I wanted to. And then Monday through Friday, I'd eat semi-clean, but I'd work out really hard. And my weight was always good. That slowed down a lot when I hit into my early 40s. I realized, like, I can't even have great cheat days anymore.
So that's exactly where I'm at right now. I can eat whatever I want.
Sure.
At any point in time, as long as throughout the week, I make sure. I don't really like to eat like trash food and all like fast food and stuff like that to begin with, but I do love donuts. I like burgers. I like this and that. And I get to eat them whenever I want because I do work out pretty hard.
Yeah, that's good, brother. Hey, hang on to that. Enjoy your time. Hopefully, it'll never leave you. There are a few friends of mine that are older that are that way. I don't know how their metabolism kept with them so well, but it has. So maybe you will skate by, and that. But all us normies out there, we have to watch what we eat as you get older, for sure. So Definitely. It really starts playing in. And I always tell my kids this: if you build healthy habits early, whatever it is, healthy working out, healthy eating, healthy discipline in work, all of these strategies, if you can build them in, the earlier you build them in, man, the execution later on the payoff is so great. If you build them in, it's so hard to change a bad habit.
Hey, real quick, if you're still watching or listening, congratulations. You don't have the attention span of a goldfish. And it also seems like you like what you're listening or watching. So why not subscribe, leave a comment, like, or if you're in a podcast platform, leave us a review. It helps us out more than you think. All right, let's get back into it. Exactly. I'm a firm believer that from the moment you start, basically when you start puberty up until like I would say maybe mid 20s, those are the times where you build your for life habits, right? Like, if you can go down the rabbit hole of like drinking, partying, smoking, this and this and that, and then that will have huge repercussions by the time that you're near your 30s. Or you can have on the other side, when you eat good, sleep good, focus on your career, build good habits in the gym, and then you look at, you turn 30, you're like, well, I don't feel like I'm 30. I feel like I'm 25.
No, I mean, looking back, if I could had less Friday nights and Saturday nights out, I'd be better for it. I mean, for sure. You don't have to go to every party. You don't have to do everything. I mean, I was pretty focused. I was pretty focused. I got married at 24. We had our first kid. I was probably 26-ish or something like that, 27. So, I could tell you, I'm 48 now. My son will be 22. So we just, so 20, what's that? Oh, I was married at 23, son at 26. Yeah. My wife's over in the control room. She's calling out the numbers. She knows all that stuff.
She making sure.
That's right. That's right. So, I was pretty focused. I really worked hard in business, and I kind of felt like I had to, when I was younger, and I agree with what you're saying. You do start developing things. Once that ACL happened and my scholarship money was not where it needed to be, I still had kind of the Hope Grant, which in Georgia at that time in the late 90s, they did the lottery, and the lottery paid for your school. If you had a B average in high school, it'd pay for your school, all your books. So your tuition and your books, it covered. And so I came back to Georgia. The school I was going to was in Georgia, but I came back to really Georgia State University in Atlanta. And I said, well, I've got this Hope Grant, so I know I can go here for free. A state-funded school I can go to for free. And so I went to the Georgia State University for 2 years while my wife was still in high school. We met in high school, so we were still dating, and it was close to where we were. And then when she graduated high school, she said, hey, I got into the University of Georgia. She was smart in a whip and early enrollment and all that stuff, and perfect SAT score and all that jive. And so she went up to the University of Georgia. I said, well, I'm following her. So I transferred up there, and I took out but I had to work. I knew I'd have to work when I went to school because I didn't have my parents didn't have a lot of money. They had just gotten recently divorced. They had all these other issues out there. And I knew I wanted to follow this girl that I really loved, and I wanted to pursue that relationship. And I also loved the University of Georgia. Side note, go Dogs. And so I wanted to go up there and be at school, but I needed to find a way. I remember I had a little bit of credit card debt and some other things. I was working at a sports shoe store selling track shoes, really anything, workout shoes, running shoes, football shoes, whatever. And they had apparel. It was a big shoe store. It had a little indoor running track in it. It was a big deal. And so I needed a job, and I had also started a little landscaping on the side. I was entrepreneurial. I was always doing things when I was younger, figuring out how can I make more money. And because I just didn't come from much. I can remember going to youth camp. I back up a little bit. I can remember going to youth camp when I was in middle school for church youth camp, and it was probably like a spring break, fall break. And my best friend, who coincidentally, he's coming in next weekend. I'm still best friends with this guy all these years later. And he and I were at this youth camp, and he didn't come from a lot of money either. But we pooled our money that our parents had given us for lunch, and we noticed that the fire department had a Coke machine and it's a quarter a Coke. And so we took all our money and we bought every soda we could buy out of that soda machine for a quarter. And we went and we got bags of ice from the hotel, just like Kroger bags, like sandwich bags. Mm-hmm. And we filled them all up, and we'd sit on the street corner by these hotels, and we'd sell Cokes for 50 cents a Coke. So it was 100% profit. And we sold that. And then we did it again. And so we ate like hogs, man, that week. We were able to do whatever we wanted to. I blew the money that week. I did that in the first 2 days, and then the rest of the time, I think I had this old LSU hat that I bought with that money that is falling apart that I won't throw away because it's a reminder of that entrepreneurial spirit. And so I was always doing stuff like that. And but I can remember going to the bank right before I went to the University of Georgia, and I said to him, I'm 19, 20 years old, and I said, man, I need to consolidate some things. Because if I could just pay one payment at a lower interest rate, I could cover this. My life would be easier. And the lady says, you have no history. You have no credit. You have nothing. In fact, she was really kind, and she looked at me. She goes, really, the last thing you need to do is move out and go on your own to the University of Georgia and do all that. And I said, well, great advice, but I'm following this girl. And so I went anyway. And just worked. I worked the loading docks. I got a great job. I worked for a long time on loading docks, where I would go to class in the morning About 2 or 3 o'clock, I go to a loading dock and load freight until 11 o'clock at night, come back in, eat something, go to bed, do it again. I just did that. And so I did miss out on a lot of Friday nights, but I was able to pay my bills. I graduated school where all my friends, now this is going to really upset some of you young folk out there, but I had friends that graduated with about $40,000 in debt, which seems like a dream right now, because I think a year of school is probably 40,000.
Yeah, it's insane.
But I think I came out with like $6,000 in debt because I worked really, really hard to not take any debt. And so yeah, that was kind of what I did. But I think that helped me build good habits to be focus driven going into the workplace.
Yeah, no, and that's crazy. I would have never thought about that. I mean, the whole thing with the Coke is kind of crazy. It's kind of funny. Taking, supporting the firefighters and, all that by taking their Cokes.
Yeah. Well, they didn't realize they could have sold them for 50 cents, right? But I guess they had them at a quarter, and nobody knew about it. We were like, this, we've hit the honey hole.
Yeah. And that's
so
a pot of gold right there.
So for 2 days, all we did was sell Cokes. But then for the other 3 or 4 days we were at the camp, we were in the arcade, we were ice skate rink, we were buying hats, we were eating the burgers and fries and the shake, so we were doing everything. Yeah.
That's crazy. And so what did you major in when you went to the university?
So it was economics. And so I kind of wanted something business wise. My father-in-law, who was a mad influence in my life. Again, I don't want to take away from my parents because they certainly were influenced. But there was definitely this disconnect towards the end of my time in school. In part, not I don't want to say disconnect because again, I was super close to my mother, close as close as I could be to my father at the time. But there was just there was a disconnect in our home that you could feel, even though they hadn't gotten divorced, right? So there was something brewing. There's always something probably brewing, if we're honest. But that was happening, and so I found myself spending more time with my wife's family, and her parents probably didn't want me around when I was 17 years old, and thought, well, what's this knucklehead doing? But I kept hanging around, and so at some point, I think her dad was kind of like, if this knucklehead's going to hang around, I better start investing in him. And so he would really talk to me about working hard. He would talk to me about what discipline looked like. He would talk to me about some of his stories and how hard he had to work to get to where he was, and then really truly that I could do it. I could go to school, and I could make this work. And so those lessons is really what gave me the idea that I could make it happen,
Yeah, that's crazy. I think having any kind of positive role model once you're coming up is great. You're very lucky to have a father-in-law that was willing to invest in you. There's people that, obviously their father-in-laws don't like them, or they're just, for lack of a better word, deadbeats, or any of the following. I truly do think that we do need more men that are willing to bring up other men, just like you experienced.
Oh, for sure. It's one of the things I'm trying to be conscious about too, is my kids partner up. So again, I've got kids 21, almost 22, and actually 20. She's gosh, is she 20 now, Danielle? 19, soon to be 20. Yeah. So 22 and 19, or 21, 19, and 17. And they're all kind of partnering up to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. They all have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And, I like them all. I hope that, if those relationships last, then great, God bless. I just hope we leave each other with, when you're in a relationship, you leave the other person with the least amount of damage as you possibly could. That's my prayer for them to do with the people they're with, and really forever, whether they get married or long-term or whatever, just be the least damaging person in someone's life, and in relationships, sometimes people, they go in them and out of them and in them and out of them, and they leave people, hurting and all these things. And so I hope they do that, but I am trying to be cognizant of the fact that where I can help their people, I want to, if I can be a lifeline and an encouragement or whatever it is, I certainly want to do that too.
No, yeah, definitely. And I've heard you throughout this conversation that you mentioned faith a couple times, right? You
Yeah.
went to youth camp,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a little birdie told me in an email that you were a pastor in downtown Atlanta in Little Five
Yeah.
Points. What's
So
the
I was
story behind that?
so I was a default pastor. I always say default pastor because I really didn't ever intend to do that. Really, faith has always been a big story in my life. My mother, and in part my father as well, but my mother really implanted in me incredible scripture. As a young kid, my mother has prayed for me every day of my life. That's one thing I can stand on, to know that my mother has prayed for me every single day of her life. And I'm telling you, young people, if you got a parent that prays for you every day, man, hug that parent. Tell them how much you love them. You don't know how much that means and what prayer does. But she also imparted in me scripture. So she would always have me memorizing scripture, learning scripture, saying scripture. So there are scriptures that I like, even when I go through times, they come back to me. I hear them and I pull them, and they're like the song of my heart. And so scripture's always been there, but then I've always also kind of gone through churches that have had mysteries of what is faith like, and do I, and I've done, how many times do I have to ask Jesus in my heart? I messed up again. And so I said the sinner's prayer all the way into my 30s before I figured out grace, and so it was a lot of time in my life where faith, I'd have these circles of problems where, I'd be really close to God and then feel the furthest away from God, then the really close to God and furthest away from God, really close to God, furthest away from God. And it wasn't probably until my 30s that I felt like I'm going to put all that down. I'm going to give myself grace for everything. Jesus did it when he died on the cross and then rose again days later, that actually means something, and it changed everything. And it's nothing I did. It's everything he did. And when I put my faith and trust in him, he holds on to me and he has me forever. And that changed for me. And then I was like, wait, now this is a relationship with Jesus. This isn't me saying, oh, I'm in a bad situation, God. And if you take care of this bad situation, I'll never drink again. I'll never hang out with those guys again. I'll never go to that party again. I'll never be around that. Once I got grace, I was free. And then I was like, now I just got a conversation with Jesus. And every step I get closer to Jesus, all my relationships in my life are better for it. And so faith was huge. We had a sanitation company. My in-laws started a sanitation company, one truck, 500 customers. They were, my wife and I both came on to the sanitation company. I replaced her dad. She replaced her mom. My wife went to law school and is incredible and kind of became the CFO side of things and the real number side. And I was on the operational side. So I became CFO of that company. We sold that company. We're the largest residential hauler in the state of Georgia, one of the largest private haulers in the Southeast. And we sold that company in 2009, had cash on hand, started buying. You may not be young enough to remember, you may not be old enough to remember, I should say, but in 2008, the housing market crashed.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the courthouse steps in 2009 with cash on hand and started buying houses for pennies on the dollar of what they were worth that day. And even half pennies to a quarter pennies on the dollar to what they were 2007. So I just bought homes left and right and really rehabbed them. I paint them, new flooring, new appliances, put a renter in. And so I still to this day own a lot of homes and a lot of real estate that continue to do really well. And all of that has come back, plus some, and done. I was very fortunate to have cash in an historical decline in property, that I don't know we'll ever see, and certainly I pray we'll never see again, at least in my lifetime. And so it's an incredible reset that I had a chance to do that. But in doing that, I got things set up, and I was playing golf, 4 or 5 days a week. And I tell people, everybody, that Jesus broke my golf game. And I just started realizing that this world was bigger than me. I wasn't everybody's slice of pie, I wasn't perfect. There were people hurting out there. The addiction world was really settled into my heart. the homelessness, marginalized people on the edge, people that felt like that God had left them when knowing he didn't leave them. There's a version of Christianity that they heard from somebody that was off-putting, and then they left the church or they left Jesus. And I get all that. I know that and that pain, and I understand it. And so I started working inside a local church and helping them plant churches. And we planted a church in downtown Atlanta, a place called Little Five Points. It's kind of like the Greenwich Village of New York. Mm-hmm. It's every walk of life there, heavy LGBTQ plus. You got at the time it was like punk was probably big to a degree, but then there was the I can't remember what they used to call it. There's just every style, everybody wanted their individual style. Some of us continued to copy each other when you want that, but it was just a very eclectic group. And so we started doing kind of Bible studies in there. I used to do what I call Bible in a brew. So we go and we have a beer, do a Bible study, talk about Jesus. And then that grew. And the church that was planting there decided that the pastor they were putting there couldn't stay there any longer. He needed to go back to the main campus. Mm-hmm. But my wife and I were so invested in the community, we couldn't leave. And so we kept doing the church. And that's kind of why I say I defaulted into it. I mean, I did some seminary, like the theological training, and did a lot of that stuff and pastoral counseling and all that, and got ordained while all this was going on. But I never intended to kind of pastor a church, but that's where it ended up. And I'm better for it, for sure.
Wow. That's, I mean, that's insane. Right? That's pretty crazy. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. Before we get deeper into the pastor, the whole Little 5 Points arc.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit. So, you got a sanitation company. I'm guessing that's what, trash collection.
Yeah, residential garbage hauler. Most people in the U.S. today, their provider, whether it's the county, city, or it's a private hauler, has what they call a 95-gallon can. Some people go and buy them from Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, Ace Hardware or whatever. But most of them, like if you're a Waste Management, one of the largest ones, or Waste Industries or somebody like that, you've got a can that was given to you by them. And it might have their name on it or the county's name on it. Some of them will come around automated. We were actually automating trucks in 2007. So we were one of the first to automate on the East Coast. And so that technology's been around for a long time. But so we would give customers a 95-gallon can, fill it up with trash. Once a week, we'd come and pick it up.
Dang. And then at the top, right before selling off, how many customers did you guys have?
We were over 100,000 residential customers.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
A lot of customers, yeah.
And since you were more on the operation side, I just want to drill you a little bit into it.
Yeah,
I find it interesting.
Come on. Yeah,
so,
for sure. It is.
How many customers could you take per truck a week?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Some of the data that I have will be off because I mean at this point we're almost 20 years, right?
Yeah.
But it was everything was numbers driven. If you're in business, everything is numbers driven. There's a couple things I'll tell you about. Devil's in the details, and numbers don't lie. So people, I don't want to say they always lie, but people will put themselves in the best light. Numbers will tell you the truth. And so we tracked everything, and everything came down to a number. So we would track exact. So I had routes that were closer to the city of Atlanta that would do maybe 800 stops a day because they were so dense, right?
Yeah.
House. Then I had stops in rural parts, so further away from Atlanta, closer to like Macon, Georgia. You would get in there and you might only be able to get 400 stops a day. So I'd look at the hour and look at the spread and what you could do in stops per hour. So if you understood that, and fortunately for me, my father-in-law made me work my way through the company. So in college, when I'd come home for break, I'd tote garbage on the back. So I'd tote garbage during the summer, I'd tote garbage during the winter. And then when I came on after college, I worked in the maintenance department changing tires. I answered phones in customer service. I went out and did the sales routine. I drove some of the trucks and did things. But I did all of that so that I would know everything about the business, and nobody could get over on me.
Yep.
And so, and I could also be sympathetic and make sure that I wasn't requiring something that I couldn't do or couldn't be done. So, so I knew in cities we could do over 100 stops per hour. And so if I could get 120, 130 stops per hour, well, 800 stops, you could be done in 6 hours or less. You'd be done, dump the garbage, come home. You're gone in an 8-hour shift. I'm not overworking anybody, right? If you're in a rural area, I knew you might only be able to get 40 or 50 stops per hour. So I've got to cut your stops down because, people, well, you drive 5 miles before you see the next house in some of these rural areas, right? Mm-hmm. So it had to be, we ran 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We believed in having Saturday and Sunday off, or at least having 2 days off a week. When the holidays came, that schedule usually threw things around. But in general, 52 weeks a year, we were running Monday through Friday. And I would say on average, we were probably doing 600 stops a day. So 3,500 stops a week on average. But again, I had routes that would do way more than that and routes that would do less than that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Yeah, and then I like how you glanced a little bit over, like, leading by example, knowing everything, everything that needs to get done in the business. Not even just so, like, in case you have to do it yourself, but just so that no one gets the upper hand on you in the sense that, like, oh, you might not know what to do about this certain kind of truck, or like this happened, or no one really gets past you because you already know what it's supposed to look like, or what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's it. Because so I think it's a two-part. It's a two-part to it, right? So one, I don't want them to get over on me. So I want to understand, and because look, human nature is to do the least amount of work. And so you want to understand this can be done. I can remember we took over the city of Noonan's sanitation department for them. They were doing all of their sanitation in the city, but because it's government, they were charging the customers $13 a month, and they were subsidizing about $1.2 million out of their general fund. So in other words, the residents of the city of Noonan were not paying they were in taxes, but they were thinking $13 a month was going for garbage. But because it was run so inefficiently by the government at the time, 1.2 million was being pulled from the general fund to close off the gap in what they needed to actually pay for sanitation. So we came in, had a bid, $13 a month, but I made 30% profit. So I did the same price, came in, did residential garbage service, and I did it and made 30% profit. But I can remember when they wanted me to take on most of their employees because they were going to get rid of this public works department. And so I'd interview these employees, and one of the guys said, "You'll never be able to do garbage once a week and do it with these trucks, and we know what it takes, and you need twice the amount of men and this, that, and the other." And so immediately I knew he wasn't going to make the transition, right? Mm-hmm. But I also was like, watch me. Yeah, because I knew the drive we had, I knew the systems we had put in place, and I knew what could be done with the right people. So yeah, you don't want people to get over on you. But the other thing is I don't want to require something of someone that's unattainable, and certainly unattainable for them. Because then I'm just in a no-win situation. Mm-hmm. They're defeated. They're not happy. Nobody, while people may want to do, human nature is do the least amount, traditionally people don't want to show up and feel unimportant.
Right.
And so if they're not accomplishing something or doing something, then you can't be like, great job, right? They don't feel it internally. So it's a twofold process of why you want to understand your business. At some point, you can't be in your business if you're going to be an owner. You need to be about your business, but you definitely need to be in it in the beginning. You need to know every aspect of it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And I don't know how hard or easy it was to get into the trash game back in the day. Mm-hmm. But certainly now I do see, like you say, you have players such as Waste Management. I know here we have a Republic. I see them around all the time.
Yep.
Either that or you have different counties taking over it.
That's right. That's right.
And I have a friend that he has kind of like a glass recycling business.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure if he's still doing it now. I should probably check on that. But I know when we talked, he had a glass recycling business, and he would tell me that his major roadblock was the fact that people maybe didn't really see the value of it, in the sense as
Yeah.
like you could just throw it away in the
Yeah. Yeah.
purple containers and stuff, like
Yeah.
while you needed to pick it up and stuff. And again, it was a really low ticket item,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it
it's
you
tough.
definitely need a lot of volume to
Yeah.
make it. So, uh, based on your experience, what do you think would be like the number one insight that you could take away from trash, that you could tell any founder or starting
Yeah.
entrepreneur?
Yeah, so if you are going into the trash market, the residential garbage market is still a lucrative market. And you just got to find the right areas.
Mm,
So if you were going to break in, it takes some capital too. So you've got to have some capital, because these trucks they don't run themselves, right? They don't fall off trees. And so, back in the day, I was probably spending, $500,000 or maybe $400,000 a truck at the end, maybe even
Jesus.
higher. My wife would know this number better. But I'm sure the trucks cost more now. Inflation and tires and brakes and all that stuff that it comes, the components that put a garbage truck together and the hydraulics and everything else. You can get a used truck though. You can buy some used trucks. You can buy some routes off of folks. Somebody that's hurting and not doing that. I mean, you just have to get out there and find it. You got to really hustle to find it. So the break in on something like that is going to be a little bit more. And so maybe you start out cutting grass. Maybe you start out saving some pennies. Maybe you start out until you can get to the point where you have some money that, I'd imagine you'd need in the neighborhood of $1 million to start a very simple, small sanitation company, and I would think that'd be one truck and 500 customers, maybe two trucks you could squeeze out of it. But I think you'd probably be in that neighborhood. But what I would look for would be the unincorporated counties. So don't think like, we'll use Georgia for an example. Don't go to places that are like Atlanta, right? Atlanta's locked down, right? So you want to go just outside the metro. You'd look at places just outside like Cumming, Georgia, or Forsyth, Georgia, or, in places that are a little bit more rural but growing. So you can break into it, and the competition won't quite be there. And hopefully as it grows, as that county grows, you'll grow, right? And you build the business off of that. So that would be the number one thing. I can see why your friend would have a hard time in recycling. The hard part about glass is glass is made of sand and water, and we have tons of sand and water, and so
Mhm.
that's why people aren't recycling it. In fact, there was a period of time during our time, again, fast flashback 20 years ago, where everybody was hot on recycling. But most of the recyclers got to where if China wouldn't take it or some of these other countries wouldn't take it and recycle it, I would drop it off at a recycle center and they would throw it away.
Mhm.
So you did all this work and it's being thrown away anyway. So recycling is very tough when it's done on the sanitation side of things. And I'm never a big proponent for it because we're just not thinking about it right. If you're in the sanitation side of things, if you think about it, I'm sending a garbage truck out to you that has battery acid, brakes, the rubber and tires, poor emissions, all of these hydraulics and this oil, all of these things that are absolutely horrible for the environment.
Mhm.
I think everybody's in agreement they're horrible for the environment. To pick up a little bit of recycling, that quite frankly, most of it's not going to be recycled.
Mhm.
And so we're doing it poorly, and we're doing it once a week. We're sending that truck in to do that stuff. And so really, I think the youth of today is solving problems, I think, at a better clip than my generation was. So I think we will see things that where you're seeing, like, I'm seeing water bottles that biodegrade faster, right? I'm seeing different products that are coming out that are made differently to disintegrate quicker and not fill the landfills up, because we're almost realizing we're not changing behavior like we should. And so how do we create products that where behavior almost doesn't matter anymore?
Right, right,
Yeah.
exactly. I agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. And another question on the operation
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
One of the major obstacles as you scale a business in any kind of service business
Hmm.
is the fact that your business goes from whatever the service is to a people managing business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where either you make it or you break it, because you can
Yeah.
either handle people or you can just handle yourself, and then you go back to being a solo operator.
Yep.
Um, and then knowing how much you scaled your company, what would be a piece of advice to those who are getting into managing people or those who are already at managing people?
Ricardo, great question. A really great question, because scaling the business is probably the hardest thing. Is how do you replicate yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you, because you care so much about your business. You care so much about the, because when you're, so we're in a customer service oriented business. And what's funny is, I mean, I would die on a sword for a customer. I'm so removed from it now. I don't, I'm like the worst customer service person in the world today. So, but back then, man, I mean, the customer was always right, always right. But because I knew how important it was and well, how hard it was to get someone. And then I want to make sure we keep them, you know, and do the right thing. And every customer was valuable and every customer mattered. And those customers paid for, you know, my kids' education, my cars I drove, the house I lived in, the food I ate. The customer was everything. And I knew that. But how could I make my employee that was getting a paycheck and going home at the end of the day and had all their problems hitting them feel that the customer is that important? And that was always a hard thing. How do you replicate that? So a couple of things I would say. Time's one of the biggest things, and it's hard because you don't want to give your time. It's so important, and you may not want to sit with that manager, but you've got to find good people underneath you, and they need to be able to start making decisions like you would make decisions. But that's letting them in on the decisions you're making. Let them in on your thought process. Don't hold that in. In other words, if you've got a big decision to make, get the feedback. I would encourage companies today, if you don't have if I was doing it today, I would have a feedback award like every week for the absolute best feedback that came in from any employee anywhere. Like, what could we do better and different? Because you get that buy-in from them. And then you see that one feedback that you're saying, star to that guy, here's $100 bonus, or here's a free gift card to Chick-fil-A, or here's a whatever you want to do. Then everybody around says, that's the idea that the boss liked. So I need to come up with something like that. I need to be thinking like that. So there's simple ways to implement in this idea of recreating yourself. You're never going to fully do it, but that's the only way you scale. And so you got to put time. And then you've got to be repetitive about it. You can't do it one time. You can't say, well, I had a great conversation with my manager the other day, and then a year later you have another one. So we used to say, I would look at every aspect of the business. So accounting, customer service, maintenance, the routes, drivers, the guys on the back, whatever it was, we would go through that. And I constantly would go through those areas. And I would look at what's right, what's wrong, and then how do we fix it? And I would start there, because when I had these conversations with those departments and department heads or people in the departments, I would say, I'd start with what's right. My father-in-law used to say, hey, what's wrong? How do we fix it? Start over. But we started realizing people hated when you started with what's wrong. So I would start with, hey, these areas are your fire. I mean, this is slapping. We're doing everything. You're crushing this. I love what's happening here. But while I've got you, there's this blind spot. There's this section we've got to work on. How do you think we could retool it? I've got some ideas. I want to hear from your ideas. And then we would fix that up. And then I'd start that process over. So I might go to another one, but then I would come back to them maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. I say, hey, how's that fire we put out? How's that? Now, is there anything new? What else can we get better? I mean, because you don't realize if you can get 1% better every day at 365 days, that's 365% better,
Yeah.
right? Just a little tweak every day. The problem is most people look at a situation in a company and say, I need to fix that. So you plug that hole and then you move on, and you never come back to it. You've got to constantly come back to those areas and make sure that what you did worked. Did it have the results you worked? And then what else in that area could be fixed? You know, so that's the time, and you've got to constantly work that to replicate yourself. Yeah. Those are the suggestions I'd have, Ricardo.
No. I truly believe that's great. And I'll definitely take up on some of those since I'm getting into the whole managing
Yeah.
people side of the business. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So hearing you talk about this whole like garbage company
Yeah.
arc that you had, it seems like you guys might have been super busy, super
Yeah.
into the weeds. It must have been a tough time before the sale.
Hmm.
And you said after this point, was it after this point or was it during this point where the defaulting to a pastor happened?
It was after. So
It
there
was
was no,
after.
man, I
Okay.
was in garbage, man. I was so into the garbage, and I was not, I wasn't driving truck towards, I was a CEO at the point. So there was a point where I wasn't in, the business. I was at the business every day, but I wasn't like in it every day. So
Hmm.
I got to the point where once you put in the right amount of time, I would have Excel spreadsheets that would come to me that would show me this is what our tires were doing that day. This is what our routes were doing that day. I could look at the numbers and see if we had a problem pretty quick. So once I
Hmm.
started identifying and creating metrics and targets, you could really make your decisions based, again, all on the numbers. But that
Hmm.
takes time to get it there. It takes time to look at it that way. But I still just didn't have, even doing that, I would never have had the time to go into the default pastor. I mean, we were having kids. I had all three of my children were born during us owning the sanitation company, I think. Yeah, is that right? Oh 04, 06, and 08. Yeah. So our last one was born. My wife gave birth to our youngest and I think came home and did a route change in the bed while she was nursing our youngest. So we had kids. I mean, we felt like there were times, young people, you're going to feel this way many times, especially if you're driven and you're starting a family, you're going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hydrant. Man, just give yourself grace in the moments. Find those times with family and be selfish about them when you can and focus. My wife did an amazing job of creating great parties and great events. We started getting involved in the local church. And I think at the time that was so important. Part of it was just to have childcare for a couple hours where we could go to church. I mean, we'd teach Sunday school for crying out loud just so that our kids were, taken care of for a couple hours. And that was a reprieve, so you utilize some of those things that are around you and some of those resources around you to get those reprieves when you need them. But I know it will feel like it'll never end, but that's part of having a drive. That's part of,
Hmm.
if you want it all, you're going to have to give it all. It ain't going to come free. And so if you want it all, you got to give it all and you got to be willing to give it all. But once we got done with the sanitation and sold it, like I said, I really kind of set up my wife, myself, and another partner of ours. We kind of set up the houses, the rehab, the houses, got them going, got a place where I could golf a ton. And that's when I started realizing that the world was, because you can go down this world, you exit a business and you got feel like a pot of gold and you do all these different things and you can get really big headed. The world is littered with stories of people that, you know, got money and became a social nightmare,
Hmm.
so the world's riddled with those stories, and I didn't want to become that. And so, you know, eating humble pie at any time is always good. And so yeah, that's where I started working inside the church. Was probably, I don't know when. I mean, it feels like 3 years, but it could have been two or 3 years after we sold the business.
And not only just being a pastor, which is a great thing to do, great thing to
Yeah,
be. The fact that you also did it in Little 5 Points, which for the people that don't know Little 5 Points, you kind of touched on it a little bit. It's pretty much like this cultural mixing bowl. There's a
yeah,
little bit of everything. All flavors are there.
yeah.
I think historically, correct me if I'm wrong. Historically, it's because like it's called Little 5 Points because there's like five streets that kind of
That's right.
unite at some point,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Okay,
exactly right.
that's exactly
Most
what.
most 5 points I think are there's lots of places in the country come to find out that are called like 5 points or little 5 points. This one in Atlanta is little because I think there is another 5 points, but it's from the fact that all these points, road points, come together. Yeah.
Perfect.
It was crazy enough. So it's definitely inner city. It's definitely inside the city of Atlanta. But there was a time that's way gone, back in the 30s or 40s, that area was considered the first suburb of Atlanta. So very interesting. And right around the corner from Little Five Points is where my great grandmother had a home that was bought by the Jimmy Carter Foundation when he wanted to do his presidential library there. Wow. And so I had some history to the area that I was third generation immigrant, so my family came from Austria and Germany, but my mother's side was all Austria. My great grandfather was a captain in the Austrian army and lost his wife and took his two kids at the time and came to our country and through New York and landed in Atlanta and built a home and a business and worked for Haverty's Furniture and made furniture for Mr. Haverty all the way back then. So I have a lot of, that little 5 points means a lot to me, but it's definitely changed and very diverse for sure.
And I'm not sure how Atlanta was back then. I know how Atlanta is now. You know, it has a lot of fame, some good, some bad.
Sure.
But in that time that you were working as a pastor at the church, was there any conversation maybe at the church, maybe outside of the church, that kind of struck you, made you think twice about how you see things?
I mean, always. There's just always tons of conversations that happen inside the church. I mean, I would say outside the church, it's the people that continue to grow my understanding of God's grace. And understanding other people's journey, which I love how you're kind of titled your podcast and where you want it to go. But understanding people's journey is so important. I think it's important in faith, because really the arrogance of the Christian faith is to say, this is what the Christian life's supposed to look like because I'm living it. That's like the arrogance of our faith, because the people that say that the loudest are the ones that have the darkest secrets that they don't ever want to come out, right? And we see it all the time. I mean, there's pastors that have these moral failures, these pastors that have financial scams. There's a guy down in Miami had a 17,000 square foot parsonage paid for by donors, Bentleys and Rolls Royces and all this crazy stuff. And just got arrested for financial fraud and schemes. And we've seen it. This stuff's almost as old as time. I mean, humans unchecked will human. And it's the same world in the faith world. But the longer I got involved in it and dealing with people that felt the furthest away from God, I think those are the conversations I like the best. Those are the ones that stretched my faith the most. Even my podcast that I do, I always tell people that I hope when you listen to my podcast that and not every episode I have will be faith. We're not like a faith podcast, but because of my background, faith plays a lot in it. But I always say that I hope when you listen to it that it will, if you're a believer, it will stretch your definition of grace. It'll stretch your idea of grace. And if you're not a believer, I hope it will help you start doubting your unbelief, because that's that moment that I love. Those are the conversations to me that meant the most, was when I'd sit down with somebody and they'd say, I started praying for the first time. I don't even know if it works, but I started praying for the first time. Or they'd say, hey, I started giving to this charity because you were telling me how we need to be generous. And I'm like, anytime somebody steps closer to Jesus, that's just like a massive moment. And every step, you just see, I've seen so many relationships and lives repaired just by taking one step closer to their faith.
Man, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about there. We don't have enough time. But so quick things. Like you said, some pastors that kind of take advantage of their
Yeah.
congregations,
Yeah.
that buy all these obnoxious things.
Yep.
Definitely not in the example of how Jesus was. He was a very humble man,
Servant.
humble beginnings. Yep, he was a
Servant.
servant to the people. He was not just this guy that takes and takes and takes.
Yeah.
Um, I've at some point, I think probably in the past year, I kind of dove into the rabbit hole of mega churches
Yeah. Yeah.
and televangelists, and like you said, they go
Yeah.
back to as like it's like
You got Jim
they
Baker. You can go back to Jim
yeah
Baker and Pat
hmm
and what Tammy Faye and
all of them.
yeah, Jimmy Swaggart. I mean, there's so many of them.
It's
Yeah.
the same, just rinse and repeat,
Yeah.
rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, and it's truly sad because
Yeah.
the people that go to those churches, they generally think that, oh, I'm giving out this money because
Yeah.
it's actually gonna I'm
Right.
actually gonna get my sins forgiven, or I'm gonna
get
have this like
something out.
revelation.
I'm going to like prosperity. We call it the prosperity gospel.
Prosperity gospel.
Right. I'm going to give so that I get. Right. Yeah. And even then you think you're giving to somebody that really cares about you and that is going to also in turn do good. But so at the very minimum, some of these churches, at the very minimum, they pay for their light bills and electricity and the building. Oh. And that's nice, and it pays for the salaries of everybody. But where's the outreach? Like, where are we helping the single moms in the church? Where are we helping the family that can't afford the rent because they just lost their job? And I'm not saying there's not. Look, there's good churches out there. I am not saying there isn't. But that's the problem. The loudest voices are some of the worst. I mean, exactly. I have a really close friend of mine, and we're not as close anymore. I moved to Florida, but when we were in Georgia, and it was Mike Vigil, and shout out Alan Vigil Ford. They're one of the super centers in Atlanta. If you need a Ford, go see Alan Vigil Ford. Tell Mike JB sent you, and they'll take care of you. They're great people. But I used to sit with Mike all the time. And you could kind of tell how the local economy was doing based on car sales. I mean, if people were buying cars, people doing good, And so you could almost see it. But I remember Mike told me one time, he said, if you ever watch an automobile commercial, and a car commercial, the loudest car commercials, those are the guys that are the worst places to buy from. So look, think about it. If you watch a Lincoln commercial, a Ford commercial, or Chevy commercial, it's pretty copacetic. I mean, it's somebody driving on the hill, built Ford tough. It's quiet, but it's just whatever it is, right? You watch some of these drive-bys, and they've got these blow-up guys swinging everywhere. And come on down, it's $5.99 or whatever, That's the guy, essentially, you do not want to buy from. And so the same thing happens in the church. The loudest voices can be our worst voices.
Yep.
And so we've got to be really careful about that. Especially them Westboro Baptist guys. Those folks can fly a kite.
No, I definitely agree with that. And it truly does suck because those are the people that have the most resources, therefore they have the most outreach.
They should. And they should have the outreach. I mean, crazy enough, I have so many statistics on this because I just did an episode, and I tell your viewers to go check it out.
I was looking
with the religion, the religion business guys, and they were just on Sean Ryan, and then came on my show right after that. But those guys, Nathan Apfel, and Chris Ayub did an incredible job. 7-part docuseries. You can go check it out. TheReligionBusiness.com. But they dive into all this world. So this is still. I've always felt that way, but these guys like uncover what went wrong. Yeah.
It's truly a hole that is very, very deep and honestly very, very sad. It's the wrong way of viewing religion, and it's not really 100%. Just about religion, right? Because it's not.
Forget religion. Forget religion. That's become a business.
About religion.
It's about Jesus. And
exactly.
And I will say this. I said this on. I actually think I said it on that pod, and I'll say it to your viewers too. That if you are to believe that Jesus walked this earth and did what he did, and as he created all these miracles, and as he taught us the way to live and treat people and to love people really well, as he did that, was then crucified and died on a cross, and then days later, as he was dead in a grave, his air began to fill with lungs. That's what you anchor your faith to. Forget about the church, forget about the planes, forget about the trains, forget about all that. Anchor yourself to the resurrection. Tether yourself to that, because that's what changes the game. Mm-hmm. That is what gives you life. Mm-hmm. is the fact that you have a Savior, a living Savior that loves you and again comes in to live with you and hold on to you. And don't anchor it to some guy trying to make some platform and fame for himself,
Yep.
you know, or chase after that. Your faith, anchor it to Jesus. And if you do that, it won't matter what people throw at you, because you'll be anchored in the right thing.
Yep. I always try to set whenever people come and talk about religion or they have some kind of
Sure.
Some past experience that was pretty bad, whether it's a religion or church. I always try to like make them see things this way. I say, hey, listen, there was this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's named Jesus. You know, he was born, miracle that he was born, persecuted his whole life. Even though he was persecuted, he still spoke out. Even though he was persecuted, he still gained all his followers, his disciples, all his apostles. And he went through a very rough time of people did not want to believe him. People would scorn him. All the Pharisees, all the people that were supposed to be on his side were like, fake. You're not the real Messiah. This and this and that. And he would do, like I said, like you said, many miracles. He destroyed the temple, did this and this and that, all because of that was God's plan. That was God's plan, and he was just following God's plan. And at the point of his prosecution, and when he was taken up and he was condemned, and then after that he was tortured and crucified. How do I say it? The fact that he knew all of this was going to happen, still did everything that he did, and still said, you know, God forgive them, for they not know what they do. Like that is, that's what love is. Like that to me, that's what love is.
Ricardo,
right? Like,
Jesus says, "Greater hath no man to die for another." Right? Greater love is no man. Greater love is there than to die for another. And interestingly enough, it's because I love this verse. There's a verse, and I think it's in 3 of the different Gospels, which I love the Gospels. I'm telling you, if you're listening today and you're out there and you've never known where to start, I tell you, pick up the Bible, start in the book of John, and read all through John. It talks about the deity of Christ and who he was and what he was. But these Gospels are so good. I'm telling you, probably read one in a night. It's so amazing. You know, people, you'd be surprised at how many people just haven't read the Bible. And don't take my word for it. Read the Bible. But there's a verse where Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? And he's praying. And these tears come out. They say like the size of a blood drop, you know, and these tears. And he's just like, Father, just let this cup pass from me. Yeah. But if it's your will, this is what I'll do. And that verse to me means so much, because Jesus didn't want to do this. Is there any other way? Can I not be the sacrifice? Can I not be the one? But yet he did it anyway, and he did it. Now, as God is all-knowing, hard concept to understand that God's all-knowing, understands, and this is where people get frustrated, because it's like, well, if God cares about me so much, why does he let all this stuff, bad stuff, happen in the world? Part of it is because fairness went out the window with Adam and Eve. Super easy thing to explain. And then some of it, I just got to say, I don't understand either. On this side of heaven, I'll never understand why we go through the things we go through. And they're so, it's more nuanced. It's harder to explain than just that. But an easy explanation is just understand that we are in a broken world. And God is the one thing God will not do is take away your free will. In other words, your ability to make your own decisions. And you get to choose. Do I want to be with him? Do I not want to be with him? Do I love him? Do I not love him? Do I treat my neighbor well? Do I not treat my neighbor well? Do I steal? Do I lie? Do I do all these things? And as we make good and bad decisions, they have a ripple effect throughout the world. And so there are things that people do and wars that are started that certainly I don't want, but they create calamity and they create problems in the world. And so I can't explain why everything happens, but a part of it's because sin entered the world and we need a savior. And so the fact, though, that this all-knowing God loved me so much to send his son to die on a cross, knowing me, knowing the wretched soul that is here, and loved me and did it anyway. That, I mean, that just, I mean, almost takes my breath away.
No,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
it's truly something that it takes. I mean, I don't even know if you think like I don't think anybody can really comprehend this in the whole because, like, for example, uh, for your spouse, like you would probably die for your spouse. You'd probably take a bullet for her. You'd probably
Sure.
uh give up your
Most,
life.
most,
So
most
yeah,
days,
yeah,
most days.
yeah. On the good days, you know. But what about someone who did you wrong? What about someone who
Sure.
betrayed you? Someone
Sure.
who, let's say, how about the person that tried to kill your spouse? Would you
Sure.
give your
Sure.
life up for them?
I mean, no,
Uh,
I'm not Jesus. So yeah, you're
exactly,
right. You're exactly
exactly.
right. You're
Hmm.
exactly right. Yeah. No, it's a concept that's pretty deep. All I can tell people, because you talk to folks and it's just like, man, I get it, but it's just too far away from me, and I've got to get my life turned around first, right? I need to have my fun, and then I'll have my Jesus, or I just don't even believe in it. I'm just not even sure. All I can tell you is that, and it's what I tell everybody else, is just try it. Just here's what I'd say: biblical principles work whether you believe or not, whether you believe in Jesus or not, right? Being kind to people works whether you believe in Jesus or not. So why don't you just start doing certain things like that? Throw a prayer in every once in a while. Say, hey, yeah, I think if you were to just try it and be like, hey, God, I don't even know if you're real. I just want to tell you what's going on in my life. I want to
Hmm.
ask for this. I want to ask for that. Just try it. Try a few things out and see what happens in your life, and then
Hmm.
let's talk. Yeah.
Yep,
Don't just put
yep,
it down and say no.
exactly. And even on that note, one of the most, I mean, pretty sure it's the most famous sermon ever in the history of history,
Mhm.
the Sermon on the Mount,
Sure.
when a lot of the things that were said at the Mount are common sayings now, like an eye for an eye. Someone hits you in the cheek, you turn the other cheek, or like I think one of my favorites one is it was like the thing with your brother. It's like, how dare you see the log that is in no? How dare you see the
Well, that's not the Sermon on the
uh
Mount, but yeah, it's take. Jesus said, before you
yeah,
criticize your brother,
right.
look before you point the stick in your brother's eye, look,
Hmm.
take the log in
Yeah,
yours, right?
yeah, yeah.
And by the way, it's one of the biggest things. I mean, again, Christians, we can be the most judgmental and harsh people in the world. And I think if we can figure out how to walk with grace, there'll be an incredible revival across this nation.
Yep.
But we're human too, and we make mistakes. I mean, Gandhi said it best. He said, "I love your Jesus, but I don't much care for your Christians."
Hmm.
So we have a lot of work to do, and rightfully so. We're fallen people. We're trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to get better. So we have a lot of work to do. But yeah, it's we need to assess ourselves first, and just love people.
Hmm.
There's an old pastor, Billy Graham, said years ago, said, God judges, the Holy Spirit convicts, we love.
Yep.
And that's really where we need to fall in as Christians, right?
Hmm.
Let God judge, let the Holy Spirit convict, we love. I can't change anybody. I can't change anybody to Jesus. I can't change anybody to better thinking. I hope things I say, hope things I can do can help to improve other
Hmm.
people's lives, but I can't do it. And
Hmm.
certainly I can't save anybody, and I can't be a savior to anybody. And so I have to rely on just loving people exactly where
Yep.
they are.
Yep. Exactly. And like for example, in my case, I was saved a year and a half ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. Awesome.
At my church, so that was pretty cool. And
It's awesome.
even then, I still had lots of doubts. I
Sure.
think there's this common belief that Christians think that they're like the best thing in the world, like they know it all, they don't sin, this and this and that, which is 100% not true. But um, I would often find myself like still doubting, like, okay, I just went through all this. I believe God's there. I believe in Jesus. I believe
Ricardo,
in
doubt's going to
this.
come and creep in,
Yeah.
and don't run
Hmm.
from it. Jesus can take it. It's totally, it's just part of life, doubt coming in. And I've had doubts. We've all had doubts. Peter doubted. Thomas doubted. There's so many. You're in great company with some chief doubters in biblical history. And so asking questions and verifying that is so important. It's so important. Again, that's why I say it's so important to tether and anchor yourself to the resurrection. Because the rest of it, cover to cover, the 66, some say 67, there's even the Apocalypse, you can get in the 70s. I mean, all these books were written over 4,000 years in several different languages, in different contexts, and different people, and written in some of them letters. And so it's a lot. And for everybody that says this verse means this, and everybody, I can put somebody else mirror them to say this verse means something completely different. And there'll be well-minded biblical scholars that will differ. And we get in a lot of these crazy arguments. And I just tend to think that when we get to heaven, we're going to have the biggest belly laugh we've ever had, because we'll be like, wow, we really just argued about something that just didn't matter. Yeah. So don't run from your doubt. There's so many great books. I'll have to text you on the side that are great books about that doubting and leaning into that, because I get it. I totally get it. I think that's a normal journey.
Yep. And even so, now that I'm pretty busy either doing this or on the business or just like trying to figure out my personal life as well, this is something that I also talked about at the previous podcast with the other two pastors that I that I interviewed. How can I, like, for example, in the morning, I forget to pray.
Oh, yeah.
At night, I forget to pray. Sometimes I can go days without even thinking about God or Jesus. And then I'm like, oh, man, it's Sunday. I have to go.
Same.
So it's like,
Same.
It's tough. It's tough. And especially like knowing that you went through a period of time where you were probably deep in the mud. You were probably busy. I mean, probably still very busy to this day.
Sure.
How can you make time? How can you keep that priority top of mind when it comes to faith?
Yeah. So, I mean, one, give yourself grace for all those moments that you're not. And there's a great song that I won't think of the lyrics right now, but there's a lyric in it that is, Jesus, help me doubt my unbelief. Like and it's like, he understands me. I think Passion Music put it out, and he said, he understands me. You've got to remember at the core of you is your creator that totally gets everything about Ricardo and everything about that other listener out there and everything about JB here. Totally gets everything about us, knows everything, knows all my quirks, knows my ADD, understands my failures as a father and my successes as a father, my failures as a husband, my successes as a husband, wants the absolute best for me, but understands when I don't talk to him, wants me to talk to him, but understands when I don't. There's grace for all those moments. So first thing, give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get into that. Let that stuff go. The moment, and then just restart. You're just restarting a conversation with him. That's all you're doing. And he's your best friend sitting right behind you, ready to go. So you don't have to apologize and be in this world of like, I'm so sorry and all this. And the moment you let that go, I think that the harder you'll lean into it. The moment you let go any of this guilt, like I've gone all week and I didn't read, that's the first thing, is get over it, because Jesus understands you and he's always with you. And so I have unconscious prayers, I think, in my heart, that I'm not even aware of it. But just being a believer, I think it's possible to have those. I think certainly today I feel like my prayer life is probably almost, I have days where it feels like it's an ongoing prayer, like a run-on sentence. It never stops. I'm constantly talking with in the car. Practical things you can do, of course, is to, I set a reminder, set reminders in your phone, set like a prayer reminder, set something to pop up. Like those are very easy things. I mean, you can literally say, hey Siri, can you do X? And boom, you've got a reminder. And so those are practical things you can do. And then I've always liked the Bible plan. My wife and I just jumped back on it yesterday and we're reading up scripture together after our workout. And so you can the Bible app is always really great. I mean, it's put out by I think the Life Church, and they've got all the versions in there, and I love that you can go through different versions, and different versions will hit different ways, and they can give you references to other stuff. So I would get involved in that stuff. So those are some of the practical things I do to lean into your faith more.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely keep all of that in mind. I'll try my best.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. Absolutely.
Nice. And then fast forwarding to the now, what does Jason's life look like now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I do a lot of stuff. My wife and I still do a lot of real estate. We flip some houses. We haven't done some while where the economy is. We haven't done one of those in a while, but we do do a little bit of like rehabbing and building homes and the opportunity to flip them. But we have Airbnb and when we can't, and we still have rentals, and we have college town properties, and so real estate is a big aspect. We also have equity side of things in the stock market and things of that nature. I use guys a lot smarter than me in navigating that space, but we do have that play, and then we do some venture capital, which is the idea that people have a great idea that I think has the opportunity to really accelerate and expand and grow, and it just needs some capital in it. So we look for great opportunities with great entrepreneurs where we can invest and hopefully get them to blow up their company, exit out, and give me some money back. I don't do a ton of that anymore as I'm getting older, but and then finally, I've got this media company. It's called Vintage Wisdom Media, and from that, I help people do their own podcasts and get their own testimonies out. And I do my own. I do a podcast. You can see my logo behind me. It's What the Hell Do I Know? And so I do my own podcast, and it is What the Hell Do I Know? And I bring on folks that have a story. Maybe it's a faith story. Maybe it's that they adopted kids. Maybe it's business. I interviewed a buddy of mine, made all the watches for the Louis Vuitton group, and all across the country. In fact, if you were buying a watch probably between the 80s and early 2000s, his company probably made your watch. And Louis Vuitton made like Celine and Cartier and all these other places he's making watches for, Gucci and all of these companies he's making their watch. And so, I bring on people that have a great story. And I thought nobody'd listen, and some of y'all tuned in.
Yeah, that's how things go.
Yeah.
But I'm also very interested in storytelling. I think that especially now, storytelling has gone really good with different types of podcasts that are out.
Yeah, agreed.
Movies are starting to get good again.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, there's a saying that usually the story beats the product, whether that is in a company, whether that is in real life as well, like just regular life, the story beats the product. What would be an example of that in your experience?
Well, I mean, I think right now, I think you're correct. I think there was a product. I think Marcus Lemonis says it's product, people, and process. So it's like the 3 Ps. You gotta have great product, great people, and you gotta have a great process. I tend to agree with that. I do think the story is adding up today. I think your generation is creating a buying power that is identifying more with maybe even a passion around the product. So there was an old book out years ago. Chick-fil-A used to read it all the time. Dan Cathy really put it out there. He didn't write it. I can't think of the author, but it's called Raving Fans. And the idea was that it's not good enough to have just customers, not good enough just to have fans. You got to have raving fans. And so I think there's a great example of it is that we're in a attention-seeking culture. We are in a culture that is heavy wanting attention. So if you are a company out there today or an entrepreneur out there today, you have like 3 seconds to hook your people, And so you do have to have a good story, or you do have to have a good hook. You do have to have something to grab the attention of the consumer. I mean, even when I first started doing reels, I think I do reels at 30 seconds, reels at 40 seconds, reels at 60 seconds. I do a reel now is under 10. If it goes over 10 seconds, I'm trying to figure out how can I cut it, because people don't have an attention span on social media even to see what you're doing for, long term. I mean, if you have a name like Matthew McConaughey or Brad Pitt or something, maybe they listen, they lean in a little bit longer. But even then, I think you scroll past it. So our attention spans are getting shorter. So I think you're right. You've got to create passion and you've got to create a hook. One of the best ones that I see out there doing it are places like Chick-fil-A. I think does a great job where they've got great process, great people, and they give back, and they create an atmosphere that everybody wants to eat their sandwich. If I'm going fast food, I'm thinking, how do I get the Lord's chicken, today, And so you have, I think they do a really good job. There's other companies out there that I think do a good job. The one thing I would stress, though, is you got to be really careful. We've seen this in both left-wing and right-wing circles. We've seen companies go too far, where you had like the Bud Light fiasco, where they went too far. They got too political, and it's like, we just want a company that does a really good product, and we don't need to hear your political. But then you had like Tesla that was kind of, I wouldn't say they were left-leaning company, but a lot of the consumers were probably more left-leaning to a degree. And then he went so far right, he ostracized his core customers. So you got to know who your customer base is, and you've got to constantly take care of the core while you're trying to expand. You can't get away from that. I mean, so we see it all the time. Don't get political in your message, but there's tons of other ways to be positive without being political.
Yeah. I also agree. I think while business, you'll get to a certain stage in business where you actually start caring a little bit more about politics, and you might have your personal opinions on this and this and that, as you've shown in your examples.
Sure.
But some things are just, you should just keep to yourself,
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think the consumer doesn't want to know if you voted for whoever the guy was. Nobody actually cares anymore. Yeah. Just give me a great product. I mean, it can have a great story behind it. You can say, there was a time where people wanted to know, like, if I'm buying your socks, you're donating a sock to a homeless person, right? I don't know where people are in that charity world right now. I'm not seeing that as much as I did 10 years ago in the retail space, but I'm not saying that's bad, by the way. If you are a company and you want to be charitable and generous, I think that's always good. We need more charitable and generous people in the world. So I'm all for that. But I think creating the story around the brand, I do think people, I mean, even when we did our sanitation company, I think people loved when we said we were a locally owned, family operated business. Mm-hmm. And that's a story in that. So I think people even back then in the 1900s like to hear locally owned, family operated business.
Definitely. No, I think those are great takes. And as we wrap this up, I do have one last question for you.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like a 3-part question.
Okay.
So knowing all of it that you have experienced in the past, decade or two, what would be one lesson from business, one lesson from your faith side, and one lesson from your family side that you could give a young buck like me, or someone that's just now getting out into the world?
That's a great question. I end my podcast this year with, if you could go back and tell your 25-year-old self anything, knowing what you know now, what would you tell them? So I end my podcast this year with it. And so while you're asking me this, I'm just kind of smiling because it's a really good question, and I appreciate you asking it. I mean, in the business world, breathe would be the thing I'd tell the person. Trust the process. Breathe. You're not going to get it all right. If I go back and tell myself, that would be the lesson: is breathe a little bit more. There are times where I was going so hard and so heavy, and I really could have used the time to come up for air and breathe. I think when you can do that, it's almost like a helicopter flight in business where you can fly over the business and breathe. You can actually look at it and assess it. And if you're constantly running, you're going to miss things. You know, you're going to totally miss things. So, so if I had to go back, I'd say, you know, trust the process that you're putting in place a little bit more and breathe. So, still all the drive, all the stuff, all the things I mentioned before, but that would be something I'd look back in. In the faith side of things is, again, tether. I mean, I said it a ton of times, tether your faith to the resurrection, not to people, not to fame, not to church, not to the version of Christianity that your aunt told you at the Thanksgiving table that pissed you off and made you walk away. Don't tether it to that, right? Don't do that. That's not Jesus. Tether it to the guy that walked this earth, that died on a cross, and days later, laying in a tomb, air filled his lungs. Tether it to that. So I would say when you do that, you will make your faith real. It will become your own. And then when you walk through it, you'll recognize the things that just, you know, are baloney. You'll see the false stuff. You'll see the scam artist in the faith. And so I tell you that, give yourself grace. Give yourself and everyone around you grace. So that's what I'd say on the faith side. And then on the family side, man, I mean, family really is everything. But it's also something that is easily said. You know, as a father, it's easy for me to say I'd give my life for my kids. But I heard somebody say this the other day, and I don't remember where it was, but the guy said, instead of dying for your kids, why don't you live for them now? Mm. And so I'm an older father now, and I have to take accountability for those spaces that I didn't show up for them for all the great reasons that I've justified in my head. But they're still around today. And I can still lean in and have a positive impact on their lives. And it's never too late to do that. It's never too late to do the wrong or the right thing, right? It's never too late to do the right thing. And so, family really is everything. But when we use those platitudes, they just platitudes. Mm-hmm. So if you say you're going to put your family first, put your family first. You know what I mean? And that, and it's easy to say, you know, God first, family first, you know, and everybody has their orders, then do it. Just do it. Yeah.
Jason Becker, everybody. Follower of Jesus, family man, and businessman. Jason, it's been a pleasure. I really do appreciate your time. This has been amazing. Definitely have to do this at some point later.
Thank you. We'll do it again.
Thank you so much for listening and for watching. It really does mean the world to us, and we really appreciate every single one of you who sticks around all the way until the end. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave us a review on the podcast platform. It really does help us grow. And until next time, see you guys.